welcome to a new episode of Rewind Heroes. I'm your co-host Greg, and what?
We talked about this.
Yeah, I thought we could like bring them as props or something. Look kind of.
I thought we were gonna dress up. It was this whole thing.
Dude, the hair, man.
Oh God, forget it. Forget it.
All right. So anyway, we promise this is not turning into an all Star Wars show, but there's been a lot to talk about, and we thought this one we're not gonna have notes. We're really not gonna break it down that way. We just kind of got to the point. We now have 3 complete trilogies. Mm-hmm. 3 of them. And that is the entire arc of the Skywalker Saga, as they say. We'll see what they do later on. But as of now, that's a complete deal, right? I mean, we're going to continue with shows. There are going to be the High Republic films. But right now we've got 3 of them. Three trilogies. And I think we're at this point now we could talk about how does this new sequel trilogy really fit in with the originals and the prequels. Mm-hmm. To the point, too, everyone said they had their thoughts on Last Jedi. Well, now we know how, for better or worse, how they've wrapped that entire trilogy up. So just kind of where we think it all sits together as a 9-piece entity, I guess, and where you think with the new trilogy. So opening thoughts, man.
Yeah,
trilogy,
wow.
That's a lot.
This is a lot. I mean, it's funny because one of the things Greg kind of said to me at the beginning, you said, are we glad they did this? And I think that's probably the number one question because, when we first heard that Lucasfilm was being bought by Disney and the thought of the original 3 being back and our minds had been building up to this for years. Like, what is that going to look like? And we all had our thoughts of what it should be, what it could be. And, I think we would all, at least I think you and I agree to a certain extent on the fact that this wasn't necessarily the trilogy we thought we would get, not what we had built in our minds, but I have to say I left satisfied with the story. I think that we were introduced to a lot of great characters. I think they did a good job tying this in to a certain extent. We can get into this a little bit more. But I think that overall I loved the new characters that we were given and the lore that they at least tried to tie into more probably the originals. I don't know how much we got from the prequels in this, if I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I think that the marketing... It's funny, when Episode 9 was coming out, it really became a marketing ploy that this is the conclusion to the Skywalker Saga. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the way that this trilogy was first teed up.
True.
That became kind of the dialogue, if you will, for this final film. So, all in all, I enjoyed it. I really like these characters, but I've never felt like Episode 9 was a conclusion to the 9 story.
Yeah, and I mean, this whole trilogy was... Like you said, it wasn't supposed to be a Skywalker. It was just a Star Wars trilogy. Because, I mean, we had some TV shows, but we didn't have The Mandalorian yet. When this launched, we didn't know about Disney+. So there's so many things. I think overall, it's not the trilogy I expected. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad we had it. And we're right now in this world, there's so much hate and trolling and all this and complaining about everything Kathleen Kennedy does. Everything Disney does. Honestly, I'll look at it this way. If we had not had a success with Force Awakens... You would not have Galaxy's Edge.
Fair.
There would not be... You couldn't go play in the land of Star Wars. That wouldn't be there. You would not have The Mandalorian. You would probably not have the Cassian Andor series coming up and all these other things. So I really set stuff in motion. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit about this. Not too much. I mean, this is really just a conversation we, on purpose, never really had. But, you had... With my age, I grew up until college with one Star Wars trilogy.
Right.
So that's always going to be on this mantle. And then I figure there are people that are about 20 right now that they grew up with 2. And so the way they see the prequels, which got a lot of hate at the time, they see that on a totally different level. And in about 10 or 20 years, you're going to have another set of people come in here and just say, this is a 9 film until we get the next trilogy that probably has something to do with it. But the 9 film sequel, so you have to figure out the lens that you're viewing all this. Mm-hmm. Are there things that I would change? I loved bringing in the new characters. I don't think you had to kill so many off, and it was unfortunate that then the one person they tried to keep.
I was going to say, I think that impacted a lot of that. I don't think they would have ever killed Han if they had a crystal ball, which how would you ever know that?
Well, and I would think the thing with killing Han, I think, had to do... And I hated that, because that was one of my favorite characters. Like I said, I have the character from every film, or every saga. Han from the original trilogy, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, and then I really liked Poe from the new ones. Mm-hmm. So just that kind of snarky character, maybe. I don't think you would have gotten Harrison Ford back if he knew that he had to commit to a deep role in 3 films. So I'm willing to forgive it because I think that was part of the lure to bring him in.
Right.
And I'm guessing part of Carrie Fisher's death and having to do what they had to do with the 3rd film. You know, there was even something on Kimmel where just a couple days ago where Harrison Ford was on there and they said, how did he bring him back? He said, well, JJ called and said, JJ, have a great idea and I think we need to do this. I need you to come in.
Gotcha.
And I bet you there's that part of him, as gruff as he could be, that said, yeah, I need to probably do this to help this franchise out. So,
I also think money probably helped.
oh, that's right. That's the big thing. But I think when you say you can have the send-off in mainly one film, at least at the time.
Sure.
Oh,
And he always wanted Han to die
Yeah.
in Return of the Jedi, too. That's the other thing.
You got so much of them. But, yeah, I mean, so would I have loved to seen things a little different? Would I have loved to seen epic Luke moments? Yeah, but there really was a lot of him that fit the mold of Obi-Wan and Yoda, you know, the hermit thing. So, I mean, we all had expectations. I'm glad we have this trilogy, though. And I think these characters will age well. I mean,
I think so, too. And I think that's actually, think about it. I think that I did kind of grow up with the prequels. I mean, when Episode 1 came out, I was in 6th grade.
Okay, so yeah.
So, I mean, that was the first new Star Wars that I was really getting to experience, like the hype and the build-up. And it's funny, the prequels today are respected and actually admired more today than they ever were back in the early 2000s. They've had time to breathe, but also the fan base, very much what you were just saying, has grown up. And those were their Star Wars films. Yeah. And I think the same thing's going to happen with these new trilogy, the sequel trilogy, where you're always going to have the people that it's just not their original movies. It's not going to work for them. But then you're going to have the others that now that they know what it is, you accept the films for the story that you were given. They kind of sit with you a little bit different after that. You haven't built up the story in your mind. Yeah. Now you know you're going to kind of. I've not rewatched Force Awakens and Last Jedi since seeing Rise of Skywalker. I'm curious. For those that have, I'm curious as you're watching it now that you know Palpatine really was pulling the strings. Do you look at it from a different perspective? Yeah. So like I think things like that, because you haven't had the time in between to create your version, all of a sudden then you're just taking the story for what you were given.
Yeah, I wish the Palpatine thing had not been shoehorned in because it really felt like it was, and they said that there was a plan for all 3, but there were obviously a lot of hitches, and I really wonder.
I don't think there was a plan.
I don't think so either. But maybe a loose treatment. But even that, when Carrie Fisher died, a lot of that went out the window.
Right. And I mean, that is understandable. They had to kind of recreate what they were going to do.
Yeah, I do feel they should have made that last movie longer or something. Just needed room to breathe, something. I think the characters, I mean, honestly, you go back and watch, and I love the original trilogy. And I love Mark Hamill, but there's a lot of hokiness to it. But I mean, the whole idea really was, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Star Wars is silly in its core.
It is.
I mean, it is.
But I was going to say, Daisy Ridley's acting is really on point. Probably more than anybody's was in the original, except for Harrison Ford. I mean, honestly, she really plays that character well. I wish we had seen the Poe Dameron we saw in the first one and the last one more in the middle. I wish we had gotten more of that character, more development. I just want to see more with the 3 of them overall. But I think those characters will age really well. I mean, that trilogy, those characters, because really, I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, there's a trilogy of characters in the prequels." I'm like, not really.
Not really.
Trying to shoehorn that Obi-Wan, Padme.
It never had the same vibe at all. And then they always had. That was actually always one of my biggest complaints, and not a popular take, but that's one of the reasons I like the Phantom Menace the best, because it did feel smaller as far as the characters you were following, and then as they went on, it was much bigger scale. Yeah. So I mean, this one had, I thought, a more of a focus on a core group of characters than the prequels ever did.
Right, and the other thing that I really loved about this trilogy now that we've seen it, the sequel trilogy, is it follows, I mean, people said, oh, it's too much of a repeat of the original. But the one thing it has thematically is it's a fairy tale story and a fairy tale build-up. And you didn't get that with the prequels. That story is very different, but it wasn't like you had a hero, the downfall of a hero, but this is, you have the hero, comes from nothing, and winds up needing a mentor. And I mean, it just follows like those classic tropes. And for some reason, I still feel like this new trilogy, for all the hate some people give it, it feels like Star Wars. It feels like a lived-in world.
No.
So I think 20 years from now, this is really going to stand up even more than the prequels.
Yeah, and something that you brought it up, you know, if Force Awakens doesn't have the success that it does, would we be getting all these projects? I mean, some people say that, I hate when people say this, but people will say, Disney's ruining Star Wars.
Right.
That's for you to think.
Right.
To me, it's the golden age of Star Wars. We have more content today than we've ever had. And I always have wondered, very similar, I like to kind of compare the saga that we've been given, compared to Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the way that Marvel took some time to get their footing. They've had some missteps, and then all of a sudden they were creating some really phenomenal films.
Right.
I've always wondered, what would the saga for Skywalker look like if Disney starts with 3 films that weren't related in any way to 4, 5, and 6. Don't focus on those characters. Give yourself a chance to kind of figure out what does the new generation Star Wars look like.
Right.
Because if you look at Marvel, they had, you know, movies like The Incredible Hulk that fit in their world that really don't feel like they fit, and people kind of just forget about it. I'm not digging on 7, 8, 9. I love those movies.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, if they would have created, let's just say, Rogue One and a couple other spin-offs not called Solo that gave them a chance to kind of figure out what works, then you got everybody on your side. It's not this toxic fan base that's just ready to be mad.
Right.
And that's easy to say now because who knows what it would have looked like. Right. But if they had a chance to go back and then say, all right, and now we are making a continuation to the Star Wars movies you all already love. Yeah. I just would be curious what that would have looked like. Granted, things have happened. Right. Carrie Fisher passes. Do we get the characters when they're even older, the actors to come back? A lot of variables, I get that. I've just always wondered, because we're getting ready to get a brand new series of films that we don't know anything about, right?
Other than they say
High Republic era. I mean, so what if they started with that?
I know.
And you get everybody really pumped, and then the end. I just would be curious what the view would be.
Well, and that's the thing. People are, they trash it. They're going to get rid of everybody. Well, what is this new film going to have? I mean, honestly, it could be great. And here's the funny thing about Rian Johnson, too. You know, people say don't give him anything else. He meddled with characters that people loved. Mm-hmm. But you look at any other film, the film is beautiful. You look at any other film he does, even like Knives Out. Success. Give him something with characters that you are not aware of. And
Agreed.
You might get something really, really epic, or give the guy a shot on it.
Well, and I think that's kind of my point, is it's like, I think people were so upset when we look at this trilogy because it was not what they expected. Right. We've even said it wasn't what we expected. We liked it. But I think there were a lot of people that were very upset by that. Yeah. But if you gave a director, whether it was Rian Johnson or whoever it may be, a series that they're not already emotionally connected to, but it's in the world, then all of a sudden I think they've gotten a little bit better chance of being well received because now you've proven that you get Star Wars in the way that everyone thinks you should. Right. So I don't know. I've always wondered if they would have went that route. I get it. They wanted to get their franchise that had the most success, the most likeliness of being a success out. But I also think because of that, it suffered because they wanted to get them out as quick as they could. Once that deal was done, Lucasfilm knew they wanted to make this trilogy.
Well, and you know the other thing, too, is when people said they had their expectations of bringing original characters back, making that. I think what people want, and I mean, I read some of these on trilogy, we were already at an age it was too late for that. I think what would have been ideal is a new Star Wars sequel trilogy if you want to focus on those main characters that was shot when those actors were in their 50s. Early 60s at the latest. Yeah. And that's not what you got. I mean, Harrison Ford's going to return to Indiana Jones, which people have their thing. I love Indiana Jones. I will go watch it because I love it. Yeah. But he's 77? Yeah. I mean, did you not want to think of when Harrison Ford was doing Air Force One or something like that, you know, at that age and having Han Solo running around, just a little more grizzled, a little more stuff going on. That would have been a great trilogy, but that ship sailed, so we had, if you wanted to bring original characters in, you had to deal with the age they were at, you know, just their lives, and really build a franchise on new people. If you were going to push forward and do this, they didn't know maybe how far they would go. We might get another Rey series. You hear all these rumors. You never know what you're going to get.
And I would say they probably don't know, which is okay. Like at this point now, I love the fact that they have this hiatus coming up for film because it gives them a chance to kind of reevaluate. What do we want to do? What direction do we want to go? There's a lot of rumors circulating about these projects we've heard about. But nothing's been set in stone yet, and nothing's been announced. So it's exciting, I think.
And lo and behold, Rogue One, we didn't know any character. We just knew the time and what they would wind up accomplishing.
Right.
Massive success.
Yep.
Mandalorian, we knew the era, but we didn't know any of these characters. Massive success. Now everyone loves Ewan McGregor, so let's just chill out a little bit on this one because there's going to be expectations that are not met. But we know it can only go so far. With how much Luke or anybody could, even as a child or anything, could know who he is, stuff like that. We know where the character ends up. So, but I'm just excited for it. And my thought on all this is, hey, Disney is building a big freaking sandbox of Star Wars. You can all play.
They really are.
And they're giving you more and more. So if one film is not your taste, or one TV show is not your taste, or there are books, there are comics, there's everything. There's so much now. Everyone is finding their little bit, you know.
Agree, and that's what's great about it. It's not, you don't have to like every little thing that Star Wars produces. I mean, that's the glorious part. Because there's so much content, there probably is a little corner of the galaxy for every one of us.
And what would be so good, I think, they should embrace that. Because I hear now there's that rumor still, are they going to do a Boba Fett show?
Right.
You have Mandalorian. Leave that alone. You know what would be good? There are people that just love the piloting. The crack.
Make it just about the squadron.
Do a squadron. I mean, they've got the books again, the X-Wing books with the old...
Rogue Squadron on N64. Love that game.
Now you got what? Alphabet Squadron or whatever. So it's picking up that... I'm not saying adapt that, but something like it. Maybe go that route. There's people that... with the cosplayers, there's the people that love the smugglers and that whole mindset. There's people that love the Force. There's people that can't stand that. I mean, you have people, they all have their group. And there's always a character people can identify with now, which is great. So I'm just like, let there be more Star Wars. And if it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So, I don't know. So that's it. I mean, it was just a small conversation about where we think it fits. I think these films will gather an appreciation as time goes. Already you're starting to see, I mean, you're not seeing as much of The Last Jedi hate. Have you noticed that?
You don't hear
people
about it.
People are complaining about this and say, why did you undo something that was in Last Jedi? I'm like, wow, because a lot of these people were yelling before and wanted it undone. Certain things were, and now they're complaining. It's like, wow, almost.
That's why I don't take a whole lot of stock into a lot of that, because I think that it's really anything today. We hear all the complaining. Exactly. You're not hearing from a lot of the people that just love it. Yeah. It's almost like that's dismissed. Well, if you loved it, I don't want to read about that. I want to read about all the reasons I shouldn't love it. So I think the internet creates this motif that things are hated at an extreme level or loved at an extreme level.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's any different than it's ever been. Think about if the prequels come out when Twitter was a thing. It would be exactly the same conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people say, oh, younger generations don't have the love for Star Wars, because you saw all this worry about the Disney park. Though if you saw the lines and the craziness to get a boarding pass for Rise of the Resistance ride, you realize that the love is still out there. There's a demand. And honestly, when people say, oh, the younger generations aren't as into it, I will say one thing. So I bought this. Dan knows this.
He just wanted to get it out again.
Yeah, no. I buy this. I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I cannot tell you how many times they've wanted to wear this thing. Even this morning, when I put it in a bag to bring it here, my youngest was like, can I put on the helmet? Then we had to turn it on so he could hear the Hoth battle. And it's firing lights. And he's in his pajamas with the spoon from cereal, running around, arms out, like this, listening to it. I'm seeing the flashing lights, doing laps in our house. And then my oldest, the other day before bed, saw it, wanted to put it on, he did. Then he runs out, grabs his lightsaber.
Nice.
Swings out, turns it on, it's making the sound, and he's just sitting there, like swinging the lightsaber around. This thing's flashing, making noises, and he's just got this big smile. And you hear, there's a moment when you can hear the first Death Star battle. So you hear, Luke, may the Force be with you.
Nice.
Or the Force is with you, whatever exactly was the term that Obi-Wan said. And my son's eyes just lit. He goes, Dad, the Force is with me. And I'm like, you know what? This series is going to be just fine.
Exactly. I think it's going to all end up just fine.
Yeah, it was
That's awesome,
the greatest moment. So, I think the thing was just say, we love this whole saga. We love everything about Star Wars.
Yep.
You know, I got out of it a little after college because the prequels kind of bummed me a little bit. And then with the new ones, I got back into it. And it's just, especially with the kids too, it's just like,
get to live it
cool
from a totally
thing.
different perspective.
Yeah, and it's like, I think with today's day and age, you need a little escapism, and it's a great thing.
And that's what Star Wars is supposed to be about. And I, kind of wrapping this thing up, I think that some of the exciting things is we obviously don't get to do this as often as we'd like, but the exciting thing is, and we promise we're not going to make this 100% a Star Wars show.
No.
But there's a ton of stuff coming up to talk about. I mean, you think, when you look outside of just the saga films, I mean, next Friday we got the Clone Wars coming back. Yeah. We've got, I just saw Diego Luna said they're going to start filming Cassian Andor this year. We've got that Obi-Wan series. There's a lot of really cool books in the works. I mean, it's still, yes, there's a hiatus of film, but there's just so much to look forward to.
There is.
And you get to sample all of it.
And on our show, I mean, I think we're going to, as those things are coming, there's going to be all this other stuff, because I think it's really cool to just have these worlds to dive into. I think that's why we started this. It's fun to talk about
It's 100% fun.
Like I said, I'm all good for the new Indiana Jones. Hey, Harrison Ford's in this new Call of the Wild. My kids want to go see it.
I want to see it.
I do. I'm like, I love Harrison Ford. He's my spirit animal. I will go see that movie. I don't care. And it's just cool. I think that's like my message for this show is just kind of get lost in some stuff that's fun and that you enjoy. You know? I mean,
there's a lot of dark things in the world, and trust me, this is not because we don't care and we don't have an opinion. But at the end of the day, it's a lot more fun to have fun with this stuff than to just get completely upset.
That's my thought. So hey, we will come back soon, hopefully sooner than we did this time.
Yes.
All his fault.
Sorry everybody.
But yeah, so until next time, be kind.
And please rewind.